So welcome to the Affordable Housing Trust meeting for Tuesday, September 17th, 2024. It's about 6:35 p.m. and we have a quorum this evening with Bartlett Harvey, Mark Grambacher, Suma Lander, and myself, Anna Houston. So I know that we are missing member Matthew Nordhaus this evening. But I don't know about Mr. Michaels. So we'll go ahead and get started.
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to say it's Mary Ellen Lyons, in case you were wondering who joined.
After emailing and calling. At this point, we're going to need to keep moving forward, and we look forward to being able to have him at a future time.
Okay. So, Anna, you froze for a little while there.
I did. Okay.
Yep. So you were announcing the members. I think last I heard was Mark.
Oh, it froze that far back. Okay, so 4 members, including Bartlett, Mark, Sue, and myself to make the quorum, and that Matthew is not going to be joining us this evening, and I have not heard from Mr. Michaels. Regarding a guest speaker, unfortunately, we have not heard back in reference to coming to talk about senior housing by Rick from the Lupoli Company. So hopefully he can join us at a future date. So we're going to keep moving forward. And so we have item number 3, which is our action plan strategy. In A, talking about LRAP. And so, Maureen, I do not see any representative from the office. So do you know of any new applicants or anything?
I believe that we will have a new application. I don't see Amy DeMichelle waiting yet. Hopefully she will come a little later.
Okay.
Yeah. All
right. So we will slide her in if she does join us. Thank you. I did want to mention that I'm just wondering what everyone else thinks about promotion of the LRAP program, because, you know, we do have dollars to be able to use for that. And so as an example, in the broadcaster, it is highlighted here under the rental assistance program. And if there are other thoughts that you all have about whether or not we should be avidly promoting this in other venues, I don't know how much the COA promotes it. I don't know whether or not this is something we should do. So I just wanted to open that up for conversation.
Well, I know it's in the broadcaster almost every month. And when Anita Harding and I were doing a EHS program on LCTV, we would mention it because we always mention outreach kind of information from EHS. Other than that, and then every now and then on Facebook on EHS Facebook page, it will come up. As far as perhaps the town newsletter would be another place to put just a little blurb.
Okay.
I can't think of other ways, but there must be some, because yeah.
I mean, the hard times in people's lives haven't diminished necessarily.
No, I wouldn't, and not with the cost of rents now either. You know, I mean, the hard time may have sort of lessened, but the rent didn't go down.
And we actually are offering families double the amount of rent money that we
Exactly.
for. So,
Exactly.
Okay. All right. So
What are you going to say?
Should I say, excuse me?
I think the town newsletter would be a good place to put in a section or a comment about it, some kind of a blurb, because as you say, it's helping families, and the broadcaster goes out to seniors. It's available around town for any other else, but you know, might not.
Well, then
might not be reaching all the people, although I know the outreach coordinators at EHS, if any family or any person, any resident calls in need of some kind of help with rent or any other thing, they, of course, always present that LRAP is available if it fits their situation or if
Okay.
they qualify.
Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
I would just highlight what Sue said last, that it is part of the EHS bucket of aid
Right.
available for those that they can help to qualify. Good.
Right.
All righty.
Yeah,
Any other comments?
or it just says JP and it'll talk, and when you talk, you'll just.
Okay, John, I'm gonna go ahead and mute you. Just raise your hand if you want
Yeah.
to speak.
All righty. So
Yeah.
the other topic related to the LRAP program is I did hear from our town accountant, Michelle Reynolds, and she said that yesterday on September 16th, the $90,000 that was approved at town meeting has been transferred from the CPC Housing Reserve to the Affordable Housing Trust. So that is effective retroactively to July 1. So again, those dollars are now available in the trust fund. Okay.
Great.
Let's see, strategy 2.1, the Durkee Farmhouse. So, Mr. Harvey, could you please, would like to review the 3 documents that we sent out to everybody regarding Durkee or any other topic on this item?
Yeah. I don't have really great news on that. There were test pits done. They were observed by the Neshoba Associated Board of Health and the town health officer. They seem to be okay. I do not have results. Ted Doucette, I thought he had said that he would get some information to us in terms of the number of bedrooms. He has not done that. He sent me an email this afternoon saying that he would have that in the next 2 weeks. When I talked to him at the time, or last week, he said that he can't give us an exact number because the more there's kind of a trade-off. The more units we put there, the bigger the building footprint is, and that means the less space he has to put in a septic system. And the bigger the septic system he puts in, the less space there is for buildings. So we'll have to figure out once we have sort of a kind of a ballpark, what type of building we want to do. We can obviously put more units in a row house or townhouse kind of a situation than we can in single family houses. So I think we're going to have to come up with what we want to do as a plan, what kind of housing we want to put there. I think one of the things that was distributed was the maps of the property and the map of the setback from the conservation land that borders our property, and the wetlands that's in back of the property. So we have, so we have probably 2 or 2.5 acres that we can use. But we don't really know what we can put there yet. So I hope to get something from him in the next 2 weeks and to have a conversation with him about what's reasonable, and we can talk about it at our next meeting.
All right, thank you. Yes, I remember in the spring we were very eager to get this done, and it's unfortunate that it's been taking longer than we all wanted, so.
Correct.
Bartlett, is there a way to just say, if we ask you for 23, 25, 15 bedrooms, what does that look like? Give him a number? Is that
Yeah,
backwards?
no, I think we could do that. I mean, we could ask for a 10-bedroom or a 15-bedroom and just see what those look like and if they're possible and what kind of a area we have left for a building. I'll email him that and see what he says.
Well, so the way that we had approached it with him was that he was to tell us what the capacity would be, right?
Right.
My only concern in going and asking about a specific number is then, will that change anything? In other words, will he be thinking, oh, well, now that's what they want, as opposed to this is what the capacity is?
Well, I think that he can give us. I mean, he knows what the soil conditions are, and there's a perk rate number that determines how many square feet he needs per bedroom. So if we tell him 10 bedrooms, he can pretty much know the area of the bleaching field that he's going to be doing. So that would help us with a graphic of just putting that on the site, and compared to a 20-bedroom system. If it's obvious that a really large system squeezes the area for a building to some ridiculously small size. I think just graphically, I think it would be fairly simple for him to do. I'd have to talk to him about it, but I
Okay,
think as
well,
a graphic it would help.
all right, well, so here's my concern, okay, and I'll just put it out there. The more that we keep asking him stuff, the more it's going to delay him getting
Okay.
us the basic answer of how many. So I would just really caution you in doing that, because
Okay.
we hired him, we contracted with him to do X, and he's getting to do X. So let's let him finish that. And
Okay.
then if we have additional questions we need or want to ask him, we can do so at that point.
Okay.
That's my only concern, is that it will delay the process, and or he'll say, well, that's different than you asked me to do, and that's going to cost more money.
Okay. Fair enough.
Okay. Okay. But I do appreciate the comment, because we should know what that number is. We
Yeah.
really want to know what that number
Yeah.
is.
But I mean, as I said, he's not going to be able to give us an exact number.
He can give us a range, though.
He can give us a range.
Yeah. Okay.
And then I think at that point, it's reasonable to ask him, what's the square footage, and, graphically, what would that look like? I mean, we could figure that out. I mean, these drawings are to scale, so we can construct, however many square feet we
Okay.
need.
Well, that's good. I'm glad you can do that. So a second part to Durkee is the well. And so I know that we've been in touch with the town administrator. Have you heard from him on those
No.
resources?
No, I have not. We know approximately where one well is in back of the barn. I talked to a woman in the spring who has relatives who lived in that house, and she said that there are actually two wells. And I asked her if I could talk to her relatives about the history of the place and those two wells. And she didn't, I got no answer. So I called her again maybe a month ago, and she said that her relatives have chosen not to speak to me. They don't want to talk about anything. So, I mean, they're both, she said, in their 80s or more. So
Okay.
I can understand that and I don't know what their feelings are about leaving that house. They lived there for a while, and
Okay.
so that's a dead end. I know that. I mean, she said that there's one between the house and the barn, and there's one in back of the barn. So,
Mhm. Okay. So Maren, is there any way that you can assist with this ask? Because my big concern is that winter is once again going to rear its head, and we haven't solved this issue, and we're they have a time clock in which to find the well and get it capped by the previous owner. So when I spoke with Town Administrator Duggan, he said that he was going to inquire about resources, which was um, his words, a man and a hoe for 3 hours, 2 to 3 hours to get
Right.
any excavation done. So how can you help with that?
Yeah.
Mari.
Yeah, I'm happy to help with the conversation. Are you asking for help with the conversation with the previous owners?
No, with the
With
conversation,
Steve,
town resources.
with Steve,
Oh,
Highway Department. But I talked to Steve on the site quite a while ago, and he said that he would be, willing whenever we wanted to, he'd try to find somebody to help us do the excavation. So he knows about it. He's offered to help. I think I should probably just call him and get him or a guy over there and do some exploration.
Maren, do you think that's okay from Bartlett to call him directly, or do you need to be involved in that conversation?
I don't need to be involved in that conversation as far as I know.
Okay, all right.
All right.
All right, thank you, Bartlett, for reaching out to Steve then.
Yeah. Okay.
Bartlett, please go through let the TA know that you're doing this so you don't go through the TA as per the
Okay.
code of conduct.
Okay. Sure.
If you want help with that, I'll be talking to him tomorrow and I can tell him what's up.
Well, if I copy
Yeah.
on an email, is that sufficient?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll do that because generally I find email works pretty well.
Okay, great. Thanks, Mark, for that suggestion. And
But-
taking,
Yeah. Well, while we're on Durkee, I want to talk about the farmhouse for a minute. I mean, that's been sitting there vacant. And I would like to get the name of, I'd like to talk to Mr. Cataldo, who has been developing the Robinson Road property, and get his architect and engineer as just a place to start with looking at that house and figuring out what we have to do with it. The longer it sits there, the more deteriorated it's going to be and the more harder it's going to be to fix.
I believe that Mark has already attempted to reach out. Mark, is that correct?
I tried to talk to him a few months ago and I never heard anything back. So if you want to try again, Bartlett, feel free.
Okay, I will. There was some event, I don't know what it was, where he approached me and said that he was willing to help. So I haven't followed up on that, but I will.
All right. Yep. Just let us know how that goes. Thank you.
Okay.
Anything else on Durkee?
No, but I will include the barn if I can ever get anybody over there. It's just to have somebody look at it besides me.
That would be great.
Okay.
And when that happens, though, I do believe that for entry, we need to go through the building department for keys, access, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's
Where's
a
that?
question. And who in the building department would have it is another question, because the building inspector is no longer with us.
Well, actually, we do now have a facilities director, so,
Oh, that's right. Okay, so he would have it.
well, he'd be where I would start.
Okay. Great.
Perfect. All right, so we're going to go back. I see that Amy DeMichelle has joined us in reference to strategy 1.1 LRAP. So Amy, are you available to update us or provide us with a new applicant?
I am so sorry if I held anybody up. I was apparently logged into the wrong meeting. So I do have LRAP applicant 35. This is a single 66-year-old male living on his own. His only source of income is his Social Security benefit, which is $2,015 a month. He is working with our department to apply for subsidized housing and Section 8 voucher programs. He's taking advantage of public benefits such as fuel assistance and SNAP. His monthly rent is $440 before utilities are included. Including his utilities, it's around $675 to $700, depending on the heating costs those months. He's sorry, shuffling papers here. Preference points, he scored a 9.
Thank you. Members, what are your thoughts on this particular application? Mr. Michaels, you're muted.
My apologies. Well, I was saying on the face of it, it sounds reasonable to give him a chance. And I would vote to approve, or at least I recommend to approve.
I would echo that.
If that was a motion, I'll second it. If it wasn't a motion, I'll make it.
It's a motion. That's a motion.
Okay. Then I'll second it.
All right, so Angus made a motion and Sue second. Do we have any discussion? Seeing none. Okay, so we are ready then to vote to approve this applicant. What say you, Bartlett?
I say yes.
Sue?
Yes.
Angus?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
And Anna's a yes. So applicant number 35 is approved.
Thank you very much.
All righty. Any other comments or updates, Amy?
All right. Do we want to ask Amy what we discussed about increasing the publicity?
Sure. So Amy, if you don't have any other comments or questions, we had discussed a little bit earlier before you joined us that it seems that we have our resources now for this fiscal year. Michelle Reynolds did confirm that the funding from town meeting has been transferred. And I was saying that it's great that it is that the LRAP program is promoted in the broadcaster, and whether or not folks think that we should be promoting it more. And so what are your thoughts on that, and maybe even where and how we can promote it?
Well, we have the newsletter that our IT is working at. Nancy Glenn Cross puts out, so all the departments heads will send her information to put in there. We could definitely continue to advertise it and push it there. We do advertise it in our broadcaster. I think that, we've had a couple folks that have reached out to us for the program that haven't qualified, which is fine because we can access different resources that they might be eligible for when they come in, and we get their application and we can see where they fall financially. So, I don't think it can hurt to continue to advertise it and make people aware that we have this option available for the community. As far as advertising it, I know that Littleton Green, no, I'm sorry, Village Green and Pondside are aware that we have the program, and they have referred people to us before. I know that there's been some turnover with the property management companies, especially over at Village Green. So I can definitely reach out to them and provide some further education on the program so that they can make sure that other tenants that might be possibly eligible can apply.
Mm-hmm. Great. That would really be helpful. Thank you so much. And likewise, I think we'll continue to talk about ways to get it promoted more in the community in general. And if you have something that you can put into the town's newsletter. That'll be terrific. And
Yep.
with any type of events that the COA has, I'm just thinking about, the breakfasts and other type of activities like that. Are there any kind of flyers or anything that are put out for folks, or you think folks in general who attend those kind of activities already know?
So the people that are attending those activities, we have our newsletter, our broadcaster is always out in the open for people to take a copy, which the information is in there. But as far as like an individual flyer specific to the LRAP program, that we don't have out there, posted anywhere. But we can definitely do that. We do have the brochures that were created back when the program began. We would probably want to do a flyer though that has updated information, because all of that's going to reference the previous LRAP approved amount.
Right. And especially now that the amount that the trust is approving is more, then maybe it will be something that others look at it and say, oh, that's really significant. That could really help me. Yeah.
Yep, definitely.
Okay.
We would have to change the number of available vouchers too, because I think before it was 18 or 19. 18.
Right. Now I think it's 15, right. Yeah.
Yes, 15. Yep.
So anyway, just food for thought. And if we can be of any help, please let us know. But just wanted you to know that we're thinking about that.
Okay, sure, of course. Yeah, I'll get working on a new flyer.
Thank you so much, Amy.
Oh, did
I-
Angus have a question for me?
Yes, I have a comment. I was kind of thinking that people who need these services are probably going to Loaves and Fishes and churches. Is there any reason we can't advertise in those types of places?
I'm in communication with Grace over at Loaves and Fishes quite frequently. Alicia, our outreach coordinator, she's also in communication with her, because we still are doing the food pantry deliveries for folks that don't have access to reliable transportation. So we can definitely share a flyer with her, because she has folks over there that are helping people that come in with accessing different benefits or who to call for certain things. So we can definitely share our information with them. That's not a problem.
Great.
It's a very good idea. Thank you, Angus.
Thank you for raising that. Yep. All righty. Is there anything else, Amy, that you would like to chat about today?
I don't believe so.
All righty. Well, thank you so much for being here. As always, you're welcome to stay, but also welcome to go.
All right. Thank you very much.
All righty. Thank you. All right. So we're going to continue on with strategy 2.2, Hager Homestead. Likewise, in terms of making sure information gets promoted out, there is a link right there for the one still available affordable unit at Hager Homestead. And so for anybody who knows of folks who might be interested in that, please send it out. Maren, any other updates on that one in particular?
I haven't heard any updates from the lottery agent.
Okay.
I know EHS has advertised it and has put out a program on Facebook, and I think it may have also been in the broadcaster, but maybe it's next month. I'm not sure. And then at the COA board meeting on Monday, which is broadcast live, and then of course the recording is always available, I mentioned it too. So
Great.
it's trying to get it out there. I'm surprised it didn't get picked up on, but
And Kim,
Yeah,
you got a question?
I'll check with the lottery agent, but it is a difficult needle to thread to both be able to qualify for the mortgage and to qualify for the income.
Yep. No, I can believe that. I can see why. I didn't mean I was surprised that it didn't just automatically happen. I can see why it wouldn't, but too bad. It's a good opportunity.
Mhm.
But yeah, I know.
It'll take a little longer than
Yeah.
you might have expected.
I was given a very long and detailed tour of the property, which was really lovely, and they're considering at least putting the full priced unit on the market, which then confuses it more. So they're trying very hard to get the reduced income one to be much more taken care of before they do that. It's an interesting unit. It's below grade, so that when you look out, you're looking at the cement support for the ramp that comes into the front door. So I suggested that they actually look at local artists. They could paint that and be really graphically appealing and much more attractive. So at least when somebody does get there, it's exciting. And you are right. The needle is a teeny tiny hold needle of who can hit both of those targets. And we did some brainstorming about how to get the word out, and anything that we can all add to it would be awesome. They were going to send us some follow-ups of what we can share as well.
Thank you. All right. So onward then to strategy 2.4 to Hadawan Road. So town council provided a draft of the agreement with most of the business terms that we trustees had agreed to at the August meeting. And then Mark and I met with Maren and town council earlier today. And Mark, would you like to just provide an update?
Sure. Well, you can fill in most of the details, I think, but we discussed the proposal. There were a few revisions. We discussed what the cap on the funding and what we could do, and keeping Habitat away from the CPC, which we couldn't legally do, but we could put pressure on CPC not to do it, not to give them money. I think the rest of the agreement, we more or less agreed to the terms. I don't remember anything that was outside of, you could correct me if I'm missing anything, Anna, but it seemed like we were fairly set. We have to go to town meeting potentially to get permission to sell the land to Habitat if we don't currently have it. And Maren is looking into that.
All right, thank you. And so Mark was out for a couple of weeks on vacation, and so I was in communication with Jenny Merrill, who is a town council member. And just to add to what Mark said, the other items that they went in and added in as at the latest revision from this afternoon also included things like the screening and protecting the trees. So I know that we just got the version around 4 o'clock this afternoon, but based off of our mode of operation that we don't send stuff to you less than 48 hours in advance, what we'll do is go ahead and send it out to everybody. The one thing that has been proposed by town council that's a little bit different. So we all saw the draft agreement. Some of the items, because they really pertain more to the grant award rather than to the purchase and sale part of the agreement, are items that town council would recommend that we put into a separate agreement. So what we would see is one agreement, which is the purchase and sale, and we would see another agreement that is related more toward the grant, and that's where Littleton's contribution and Littleton's involvement with homeowners would be. So it'd be the same content, it would just be split into two different documents. And so she wanted to know if the trustees would be okay with that, or do you have any questions or concerns about it?
So that second one that you're talking about would have the times that are specified for beginning and completing the project. I mean, there's clauses in there that say, something that you have to have a permit within 90 days or 180 days, and you have to finish it within 2 years or something. So that would be part of the grant.
Maren, do you have any more specificity as to how they would break it up?
Well, we were talking about the clawback agreement, whereas if Habitat isn't able to produce the units within 2 years or an extension, then the town would get the property back. That should be in the purchase and sales. But things like how the buyers are selected and vetted, that could be in a separate grant agreement rather than rolled into the purchase and sales agreement.
Okay, so the grant would also include then all the requirements about the housing, the 10% that we're supposed to maintain in the town that is on that list.
So the deed restrictions could be either or both places.
Either one, okay.
Yeah.
And she did say that the purchase and sale could refer over to the grant agreement. So that way they are still tied together. Any other questions, comments?
No, I mean, if town council thinks that there's some advantage to having two documents that are linked and they cover all the bases that we want, I don't see a problem with that.
Sue, how about you? Any questions?
No, I would agree that if town council suggested that it makes sense.
Angus?
I agree in principle. The attorney knows better than me, so there you go.
All righty. And Mark, you're good with that as well.
Yes, I am.
Great. Would you be able to follow up with Jenny then and let her know the discussion of this evening and to proceed to create the two documents?
Sure.
Okay. So then here's a question for everybody. We don't meet again until next month in October, and it kind of continues to delay this process. Is this something that we want to meet again, say in 2 weeks after we get the two documents back from town council, or do we want to wait until next month? Or do we want to give Mr. Rambacher the authority to proceed? I guess you had your hand up.
Well, I was going to ask what we stand to gain by the expedited meeting. I'm not sure it's going to change the timeline for the project or anything.
Okay. All right.
The only reason,
Bartlett, were you?
well, the only reason I can think for having an expedited meeting would be if we hear from Mr. Doucette about the Durkee farmhouse and barn, that project. But that's, unknown and unpredictable, and I don't think it's the basis for scheduling another meeting at this point.
Okay, thank you. All right. Well, with that said, then we will proceed as we would in our typical meeting schedule then. And as long as we can get all of those responses, or excuse me, all of the revisions back from town council, Mark, in a timely manner, then we can send them out to everybody. And at the next meeting, then we can approve it and move forward.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your lead on that. Any other comments or questions with regard to Haddon Road? Okay. Seeing none, let's go ahead and move on. Okay. So strategy 2.6, which is the land inventory question. So during the August 20th meeting, we discussed creating a proposed budget for the next 5 years. And so that discussion ensued into asking for available town properties that could be targeted for affordable housing. So the idea is that once a handful of properties are identified by us, further conversations, such as with the town assessor, town planner, and select board or select board could determine whether or not a property is viable for future development. So I provided a couple of resources for this conversation. First was a list of town-owned properties that was provided by the town administrator. And then I also provided a couple of examples of larger size affordable housing projects near us. And they identified in those documents, I think it was the Benfield Farms, that identified $700,000 was provided by the town via their CPC. So that gives us a sense of what a larger project would cost. So this list, by the way, is not comprehensive. And I know that because there's some properties even around me that aren't listed here, but are town owned. But I thought it would be a good opportunity for us to discuss what is your thinking again about smaller projects on smaller properties, 1 to 2 to 3 units, or a little bit larger property, perhaps. It doesn't even have to be that much larger to build more units. So I hope you all have had a chance to look at this, to think about it, and let's have a discussion. Who would like to start this conversation?
Well, I've driven through the Benfield Farms property, and it's really quite a nice development. But yeah, I mean, I'm feeling like right now we have our hands full with the 2 projects that we're working with, and it would be worthwhile to work with the town to identify some large parcels that are potentially developable. But I mean, I want to keep focused on the Durkee project.
And I totally agree with you, keeping our eye on the Durkee and the Tehadawon. I would, however, add that these kinds of things will take years. I mean, by the time we go through any kind of a due diligence process internally, bring this to town meeting, get it approved, and then start to work with developers. So all of that will take at least 1 to 2 years. So that's one of the reasons why. And Bartlett, I know that you were out at the August meeting, but for the members who were here, this was a pretty pointed discussion that said, if we have to figure out what our finance budget is for the next 5 years, how do we know that without actually identifying the project sizes that we want to work on? Because the members that were here at the August meeting were not comfortable at all about putting in sort of general items to say we're going to do 2 small ones, 1 large one. People did not want to do that. So that's why we're refocusing down this path. Bartlett, I'm sorry, Angus.
Well, thank you. First, I'm surprised that the town has so much property on their hands, and I thank whoever did for identifying those that are potential no-goes. But I must add that this is an aspirational project that we plan, sort of like a pipeline. When we're done with Turkey and Tajwan, what next? And so we have to sequence these so that we would have something to do and a reason for requesting funds from CPC. So these are small little plots and things. Perhaps we could just those who know these properties better can identify those that would be suitable for a turnaround like Tadwan, so that when this project is over, hopefully within the next 2 years, we have something on the pipeline to do. So I think this is an excellent utility for us to work on.
Kim, you had a comment or question?
My comment is that builders are more nimble and they're likely to have the same list that they're working off. And if we don't make our intentions clear, then they can come and make decisions much more quickly than we can. And so for us to at least acknowledge them, understand their limitations and eliminate them from our list and become more nimble ourselves is going to help, I think. So that then if we want them, if this is something the town wants to build on, then it should be known and you can act faster. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Mhm.
Sue?
I at first was thinking that it sort of like Bartlett was saying, it could be put off, but I do understand why it can't be. I think we do need to look at the list and try to identify some that might be useful or usable, not useful, usable, and work from there and and like Kim said, let it be known that the trust is interested in that property or properties.
Right, to letting select board know, because technically they're
Yes.
the overseers, yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So I share Bartlett's concern that, I don't know how we're going to manage dealing with more than two at a time.
Right.
I think it's just going to be tough. I also think we need to figure out like what the sweet spot is for the development of properties. Like we know roughly now how, from the Habitat experience, how much it's going to cost us to develop something that's a duplex, where, they want basically, $50,000 per unit. With our budget, we can't afford to do too many of those. So we don't know, what we could do on a larger scale, if we're doing like, 6 units or 10 or however many, and we don't know what we could build on any of these properties. So it seems like there's a lot of unknowns that I don't know how we get answers to and proceed forward on some of these other properties without really spreading ourselves thin.
Well, so with the experience on the planning board, and Maren has far more, these things take a really long time. I mean, look at how long we've been talking, even with Lapoli Company to build out their project, or how long it took to build out Hager Homestead. People are just now moving in this year, but that project started back in 2019, 5 years ago. So this is the reason why I bring it up, that we need to start focusing in on what next, what comes after these two projects, to at least, tee them up, or what's the baseball term? They're in the box, they're waiting. So that's where I'm coming from. And so my input to this discussion is that, I really believe that we need to grow our housing, affordable housing, while preserving open space. So I look at a lot of these properties, and my first eye went to, well, which properties are closest to the common, which properties are closest already to what is developed, so that we're not off, picking out trees. And so that to me comes back to anything that's available in the common area. And I don't think there is anything in the common area. I could be wrong. And then current town hall. So I firmly believe that current town hall should be a discussion point with the select board as to whether or not that's something that can be moved forward. Again, it's going to take years
Yeah,
before
okay.
something like that happens. But
Yeah,
that would enable us to have a target to say to FinCom, to anybody who asks, well, what are the projects that the Affordable Housing Trust is working on? That could be a big one, right? That could be a big one.
Mhm.
And it has no ties, as Zone Administrator Duggan said, it has no ties to Lapoli Company. They and all other developers would need to, weigh in on their proposed plans for any project there. So I would ask that that's something that everybody consider. We don't want to destroy any more green space that we don't have to. We've got a property right there. And as I said, I don't believe that there's any other property in or around the common. There's, I think, a little bit of a sliver, Marin, that's right behind the child care center that I think is part of that Cooper property. I believe the address is 194 Great Road. It says 7.16 acres. So again, that's really close to town, but again, there's probably there are probably either fields there or trees there. So
I think that property is under, going under a restriction. That property is supposed to have a
is
restriction.
it? Okay, well, so there you go. So that one's not even available. So that's my thinking.
Well, okay. And I understand what you're saying. I think talking to the select board repeatedly about the Shattuck Street building would be a really good idea. I mean, we don't have much credibility with the select board because we don't have much of a track record. But I think putting it out there that we would be very interested in participating in something or in taking it over and making it into housing. I mean, I think, just repeating that to the select board over the next 5 years would actually make sense.
I'm for that. I'm for that idea, to at least talk to the select board I know they haven't, or my understanding is they haven't made any kind of decision, and see, have they really even thought anything? And saying that, we're interested and feel that probably, some developer, nonprofit developer that develops affordable housing or senior housing or whatever, at least look at it. They received answers to their RFIs a few years ago, wasn't it? So they've got some start. There's a start of groups that were interested. So
Right.
for us to be able to say, look, there were groups interested. So now let's us get involved.
Yep. Mark, do you have any comment on this?
So for Shattuck Street, it's one of the goals of the select board to, kind of come up with a position on what we're going forward. This year for the Shattuck Street complex.
You're fading out. We can't hear you. You said one of the select board goals is to what?
Determine the future of the Shattuck Street complex.
When?
Okay.
This year it's a goal to figure out what we're going to do, not when we're going to do, not
Right.
necessarily, saying that we're moving out tomorrow, but come up with, are we going to rehab it? Are we going to move out and start working on a timeline, like that and a facilities timeline. And I agree with, the affordable housing should be weighing in on that. I think that's different than taking that list of, 20 some odd properties and figuring out which one we think should be developed next, right? Because I think that's a much harder thing to do because there's a lot of different trade-offs you have to look at, on a 1-bedroom or a 1-acre parcel, you can maybe be able to put in like a duplex or a triplex or something. And there's a certain cost involved with that versus if we took a 3-acre parcel, maybe we could put in like 15 or 20 units. And I don't know that we have the expertise on this board to determine right now which one we get the biggest bang for our buck on, to go through and say, this property X in town, we should ask for the affordable housing to have control on to take the next project. I just don't know. I think it would be great if we had the expertise to do that. I just don't know that we have it or how we get there on that.
Well, yes, I would agree. One of the thoughts that came from the last meeting was that we have funds that we could presumably use to have experts come in and help us to determine that. So that could even be a next step. But I think before we go and expend any funding on something like that, we would want to get some kind of a signal from the select board that they're at least interested in this idea of affordable housing at Shattuck Street. So it's sort of like the chicken and the egg, right?
No, I consider those as different projects, right? One is if we wanted to, we're looking at, the next potential property, and Shattuck Street is not currently available. We should, put out feelers to say, if it becomes available, we'd be interested in helping manage that. But if it's, in the meantime, maybe we're looking at some other property that we're going to drive forward on. And I think, just to say, the Durkee experience should give us a lot more understanding of what our capabilities and things are, because it's a larger parcel than Tahadawan, so we can figure out, the cost of building on, how many units we can get on a 3-year. I think Bartlett said there's probably 3 buildable acres there, so we can get an idea on what a cost per unit is there, where we have more land than on the Tahadawan place. So we can get another data point for how much these things are going to cost the Affordable Housing Trust versus grant money or other funds available outside of our coffers.
So I think that both conversations could be had, and I think that, again, we've all shared our different perspectives. One perspective is, as I heard from Bartlett and Sue about, well, can we put this off? But maybe it can't be put off because it does take so much time just to get anything done. And then we also heard that these kinds of projects are aspirational, right? They're really big projects. And right now, we don't have anything in writing as to what we want to do longer term. And, the bottom line is I see those, this is my perspective, my view is that we have those 2 big projects as examples, Benfield Farm and Shirley Meadows, that were able to create very large numbers of units, which was very helpful to their communities. And they did it on a relatively smaller piece of property. They didn't need 50 acres. They didn't even need 20 acres, right? So they did it on a much smaller parcel. And so why can't we do something like that? And if those numbers can be built at Shattuck Street, great. They can be built at Shattuck Street and we don't have to develop someplace that is currently green. If Shattuck Street isn't the right place, okay, then we do have to take a look at other properties that might be viable for us. So I guess my sense is that it would be helpful to find out what the disposition is going to be. Is that the right word? Disposition of Shattuck Street before we go spending a whole lot of time and effort on our part in identifying other properties. So that's my 2 cents. Angus?
Yes, I mean, I've heard Shattuck Street mentioned several times, but I think that that's probably not the project for the Affordable Housing Trust. It's an old building. It's very complex. It's got layers and layers of modifications and changes that need to be teased out. It probably will cost much more than we expected to if the Affordable Housing Trust were to take up on that type of a project. I think that that's probably a project that a commercial type realtor or professional type entity should be getting into. But those are my thoughts on Shattuck Street, because just because it's been mentioned so many times, I think that if we got into that, it would be more or less like throwing good money away. That's it. That's all.
Thank you, Angus. Sue?
How'd you know I had something to say?
I saw your hand go up.
My hand didn't go up. You read my face.
Okay.
I'll admit it. I think we need to find out what the town, like Mark said, the select board is going to have to do some kind of a big study to find out whether the town offices can stay there or just what happens, that the town may want to keep the building. But at least let it be known that, if they think they can't keep the building, that they need to move out, they need to get a new building or whatever, that we're interested in at least pursuing what could be done with that. There's certainly a lot of examples around where an older building has been taken over. I mean, Acton, one of the old high school, was made into affordable housing. There's plenty of examples of older buildings being used or made into or renovated. Yeah, we're not going to pay for it all, but at least let it know that we're willing to be part of it. And don't forget about us, select board.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
That's my feeling on it.
Thank you.
It was Kim that had her hands up.
Oh, sorry.
Anna.
No worries.
Go ahead, Kim.
So my question is, I did not see your list of properties, but I'm wondering, is there a simple percentage of them that can be eliminated right off the bat? If they're too tiny, if they're, too close to the water, they're never going to have sewer. What are the ones that you can eliminate right away so that maybe you're only looking at a third of those properties to even give them the time of day to then go further, so that it seems less daunting and much more reasonable for a 5-year plan on a few, not a 5-year plan on 20 or however many the list had. There may be some really easy, no, thank you.
Well, and from what I understand, when people have looked at this list in the past, is that that's what happens, is that everybody comes up with a reason why not to do something on the property. So, all right. So, Mark, one final question for you. Would it be of benefit to the select board to hear from the Affordable Housing Trust at some point before the end of this calendar year?
It would probably be beneficial to hear that towards the end of the year. Yes. Can I also say, if you're thinking of properties, if we're redoing Shaker Lane, maybe there's the push to preserve the old part of the old Shaker Lane to do affordable housing there. I don't know if it works on any of the plans or not, but maybe it's something to consider.
So the existing Shaker Lane School is going to be going through changes, and whatever those changes are could result in potential property for affordable housing, is what I heard.
Well, I don't know if it's a potential or not. I know a lot of the plans call for demolition of the school. I know there's been talk that Park and Rec is potentially asking to say trying to preserve pieces of it. So maybe affordable housing asks similar questions. I don't know if any of it's doable or anything like that.
Yeah.
I just I've heard rumors of these conversations.
Got it.
Yeah, from what I know, that there's no definite plan yet. They're still looking um, at doing an addition to the building or demolishing it and building it here or building it there, but on the Shaker Lane site. And the building is going to end up being substantially bigger than the building that's there now. So I don't see how anybody is really going to get um, a non-school use out of that property. I mean, there's nothing final yet. They're still talking about proposals.
Right, and as I understand, it's not even going to go to town meeting until fall of next year. Is that correct?
Well, there'll be a requisition for money for, further studies or preliminary plans or, something. They'll figure out a way to bleed us dry. But
I believe there's going to be a presentation at this town meeting, just an informational thing, but they won't be asking for funding until next fall's town meeting.
Okay. All right, so at this point then, I'll craft something to send formally to the select board to get time on their agenda sometime in the next few months to talk about this subject of affordable housing at any town owned property, including Shattuck Street, including Shaker Lane in the future. Sound reasonable?
yep.
So
Yes.
that'll be the next step. Great. Thank you all for that discussion. All right. So the August 21st workshop, let's see, Mark, Kim, Sue, and Bartlett. Thank you all for your work on that event and for attending. Mark, since that workshop event took place after our last meeting, could you provide a quick recap before we look to the minutes to approve?
Sure. Kim Albertelli and Dave Carpenter were there as panelists, basically answering questions from seniors on how how to stay in their homes or downsize, or what the options were. I think there were roughly 25 attendees. It seemed to be very well received. I know that both Kim and Dave offered follow-ups for people. I don't know if anyone's taken up on either of those, but it was basically a group discussion, and it seemed to go very well. So, thank you, Kim, for hosting or participating. And
yes, thank you to everyone who
It
participated.
was a lot of really great questions that it was much more back and forth than just two people standing there yammering.
All right. So with that, everybody take a look at the minutes. Any comments or questions on the minutes? Right, could we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
second,
All right, Sue and Mark. All right, to approve the minutes, let's say you, Mr. Bartlett,
Yes.
Angus,
Yes.
Sue,
Yes.
Mark,
yes.
and Anna's a yes. Okay, thank you. All right, so we're going to move into item 4 of the budget, board business. And so real quick, I'm going to flip A and B. So trustee updates. Bartlett, any updates?
No, I mean, immersed in Durkee, and I'll have more to say after I've talked to Ted and get some answers from him.
All right. Angus, any update on anything?
I've not said anything. I believe I'm doing the flyer for next month. I'll need some help with that.
Okay, the newsletter? Yes.
The newsletter, yeah.
Right. Yes, I'm happy to work with you on that.
Okay.
Let's see, Matthew is not here. Mark, how about you?
No real updates. I've been on vacation for half of the past month, and just getting back into it. So, looking forward to making progress on the Todd property. So,
Great. That would be great. All right. Sue, how about you?
No new updates. I already mentioned that about Hager that I had advertised that. No, nothing new.
All right. And did you want to talk at all about John being here?
Oh, well, yeah, I can talk about that. I'm the COA rep for, or appointed by the chair of the COA. And I am going to be dropping off of that position because I was elected secretary of the COA board, and that just gives me too much to do, too many hats to wear. And so in the meantime, I made that announcement at the COA board, and Marge, the chair, has asked if there are any replacements, any person interested. And John and Marianne Peachy are board members, and they're interested. So they were attending tonight as just observers. And it's up to Marge and it's up to them. And I will continue to be a member of this, or be appointed to the trust until Marge makes a new appointment.
Okay. All right. Well, whenever that happens, we will all be very sad. But hope that you will come and visit us often and
Oh,
make
I'll come.
pithy comments.
Of all the hats I have connected with COA board, in some ways, this is the one that's I feel most passionate and most personal about and most interested in. But it's also work, and I've just got too many other things. And I have to give up something.
Yeah, yeah, I understand. All right. Well, thank you for your update. Um, my update is actually that Affordable Housing Trust member Kim Albertelli has resigned. And so the select board will need to appoint a new member, and it is just a very sad situation, and hopefully we can continue to have further future collaborations with Kim, because you are an amazing contributor on and off the field, so they say,
Right.
or as they say, and we want to continue to to work with you on behalf of seniors and housing affordability. And so I think by not being on the board, it affords you more flexibility to be able to do that which you want to do to help seniors more personally. So
Right, to do more with, do more good. Mhm.
exactly. Yeah. And just by you being here tonight, you points, and that's one of the things is wonderful. Thank you.
I just won't vote. I'll try to be quiet during voting.
So going back to the newsletter, which was item A on the agenda. So we didn't contribute anything for the October newsletter, but we will be contributing something for the November issue. And so Angus, I will work with you on that for the October issue.
And one thing just to remember on that the submission has to be September, or it has to be the 15th of the month. It doesn't ever give you much time. The submission for November newsletter would be October 15th.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, it's tight.
All right. So then we have our August 20th minutes. Did everyone have a chance to review those?
I did.
And any comments or questions on those?
No, I think that the minutes reflected the discussions that we had. And there's still an outstanding item. There was a meeting that was had with I believe it was a FinCom meeting, and we're waiting for updates on that before finalizing. I don't know whether that made it in or not.
Thank you. Yes, so I believe the meeting that you're referencing is the meeting that we had with CPC, as I recall. Yes, and so Maren, those are minutes of the joint meeting where we got on a Zoom call and then separated out. So is that something that you could work with Lucy on to try to get those minutes for us? Because I think
Yeah, I know that Lucy has asked for the CPC minutes, rather than have two people do the same set, but, when she returns from vacation, I will check with her on that, on the status.
great. Thank you very much for that reminder, Angus. We'll keep working on that.
You're welcome.
All right, so do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
All
Second.
right. Thank you, Angus and Sue. And Bartlett,
I approve. Yes.
Angus,
Yes.
Sue,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
and Anna's a yes, so minutes for August 20th are approved. Okay, so identifying a guest speaker for our next meeting, given where we are on our different projects, who do you recommend we try to get in as somebody to talk about advancing anything that we have or one of the ideas, new ideas that we have? And if not, then that's okay, but
Do we have a list of builders that have open permits in the last 5 years or whatever, so that you know who vetting without vetting them? I mean, if they were, building with a debacle after debacle, then perhaps we don't reach out to them, but to reach out to someone who's developed some of these projects would be helpful for us to understand more what we should be asking early on.
right. So we had the SMEs, the subject matter experts coming in and who came in January, and those are one set of folks. If we're talking about actual developers, I would recommend that we take a look at a short list of nonprofit developers. And I know Bartlett, you were talking with one organization in Lowell.
Yeah. But my contact there has left, so I have not contacted his replacement.
Okay.
Well, what's the goal of talking to a builder? We have had builders speak with us. I mean, there was one that spoke with us, but then reneged on their commitment. I'm sure, Maren, you remember who it is. Not going to name any names, but a gentleman who's very active in the community, Cooper Farms and whatnot, but he never came through. So really, what's the goal of this? And then we can think of a builder, but we have to find someone who's committed and who's going to follow through with whatever they promised they would do.
Well, I think one of the things, as Kim said, one thing that they can do is just come in and give us a general sense as to what it takes to go through a development. More food for thought, I think, more than anything else at this stage of the game, because we don't have a particular property in mind other than Durkee at a little bit larger scale. Yeah. So we could certainly bring somebody in under those auspices to say, we currently have these two properties in play and others to be determined still, and see if they would be willing to come in. So,
Well, I think that Maren might have an idea. She might know those who are in good standing with, and not those who will litigate the city, the town. So perhaps we have our answer right here.
Well, I'd almost suggest that there are a lot of good workshops between CHAPA and Mass Housing and others. A lot of good, in-person and remote workshops that are going on all the time. Just look over those and see if you want to attend those, or we want to pick off a few of the presenters from some of those different groups. So many different nonprofit developers out there, but most of them are looking, in my understanding, are looking at projects of at least 50 units in order to make it worthwhile, their commitment for, the 5 years it takes from pre-project to the permits.
yep, there you go. There's the magic timeline number, 5 years. Yeah.
Right. And each unit gets decidedly less expensive the higher the volume goes, right? It's so much simpler. So,
Well, to some degree, correct.
All right. Well, if you all have any names that you can think of that you would like me to ask, please let me know, like within the next week, to give folks enough time. Okay. So then that raises the question of when we're going to meet next. So
I'm going to circle back for a minute. August 21st, you had some draft minutes from that workshop.
Oh, did we not approve those?
Unless I wasn't paying attention at that point.
I thought we approved those, but yes,
We did.
did we approve these? We
I
did.
thought we did.
Okay. I'm good with that. That was the intention. That's what happened. We're good.
All right. So scheduling for the next meeting in October. Yes, it's really going to be October. So I'm not available on Tuesday the 15th, which would be the third Tuesday of the month. So the meeting can proceed if Bartlett would like to chair without me, or we can postpone until Tuesday, October 22nd. So what are folks' thoughts on that? Mr. Harvey, since it would affect you the most, what do you think?
Well, I think you're doing an admirable job of chairing. I'd like to continue with that.
All right. So can everybody meet on the 22nd, 10:22? Yep. Mark, you're good. Angus, you're good for 10:20? Okay.
Yeah.
All righty. Well, let's go ahead and schedule our next Affordable Housing Trust meeting then for Tuesday, October 22nd, 6:30 p.m.
Okay.
Great.
Any other comments or questions for today? Cool. Well, then I guess we can ask for an adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Thank you very much. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Bye.
All right. Have a good evening, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.